Hi, and welcome to Chapter 2. We're going to be talking about in Chapter 2 business ethics and social responsibility. So I'm going to turn off my camera. I just want you to know you are talking to a real person, and then just talk about the slides as we go through Chapter 2. All right, so Chapter 2 is dealing with business ethics, which are the principles and the standards that are going to determine acceptable conduct in business organizations. Personal ethics, on the other hand, relate to your individual principles and standards of conduct, and you'll get into those a lot when you take business ethics. Most unethical activities within an organizations are supported by the culture of the organization that will encourage employees to either be ethical or to bend the rules. Organizations that exhibit a high ethical culture encourage their employees to act with integrity and to adhere to all of the business values. Okay, in figure 2.1, you can look, these are showing the different industries, and you will notice that financial services almost at the very bottom. Of course, social media is at the very bottom. So while the majority of the population is going to trust most business, some do not. And it's just a lot of it's simply because of what is portrayed in the news. As always, everything starts at the top, and leadership starts at the top, and it filters down. So as a manager, and this whole class is built on you becoming a manager. It may be in a different environment, but it's leadership skills that you need to develop. So managers must show strong commitment to ethics and the compliance of ethics. One thing that we want to talk about is it should require top managers, the people that are the CEOs, the department chairs, and even just a committee manager, to acknowledge your role in supporting of the ethics and the compliance. And as a manager, you need to clearly communicate those expectations to all your employees. Now, again, that's going to filter down. So the CEO would go down to the next level of vice presidents, and the vice presidents would go to the department chairs, and then the department chairs would filter it down to the very lowest person on the totem pole. And so the person at the top will be the one responsible for educating managers and supervisors, and they need to train managers and employees on how to handle ethics. So we want to start with talking about social responsibility and how it impacts the organization. If it's maximized, it is a positive impact. If the social responsibility is minimized, meaning they don't make a big deal out of it, then it's going to have a negative impact. Social responsibility equals ethics. We define business ethics as the principles and standards that determine the acceptable conduct in business. So it's a decision made by an individual or work group that the society or the organization you're in evaluates it as right or wrong. And then social responsibility is going to refer to the impact of the entire organization's activities on society. Now, going back to Wells Fargo, it started as at the top, and they made a wrong decision to require employees to bring in more business, and then employees felt like that to get that new business, they had to make up accounts. And so the social responsibility of that was that the entire organization suffered. If you told anybody, oh, I work at Wells Fargo, boy, little antennas went up like, uh-oh, have you opened up an account in my name or my child's name that I don't know about? One thing you want to always remember is that there are laws and regulations that govern not only our country and like by the police, but there's laws and regulation that govern business. So most basic ethical and social responsibility are covered under laws and regulation. And what that does, it encourages business to conform to society's standards, values, and attitudes. Now, what you have to think about is who set those standards and attitudes. The values and attitudes that were prevalent in the 60s, the 50s, and the 60s are not the same values and attitudes that we have today. So what that did was it attempted to institutionalize ethical conduct, and the main concern was to prevent harm to customers, the environment, or stakeholders. Now remember, back in chapter 1, we talked about a stakeholder, and a stakeholder is a person that has any stake in that business succeeding. Table 2.1 just kind of gives you from the 1960s through the early 2020s that we can see where ethical and social responsibility activities, how they have changed in different ways that you will notice as you're working in a business environment. So let's talk about the role of ethics in business. First of all, we're going to talk about misconduct, and generally that is going to start as an ethical conflict, and sometimes, and most of the time, it's going to evolve into a big legal dispute that ends up in the courts. In ethics in business, there are many ethical gray areas, which means there's no value, no codes, or no laws for particular situations. In that, we're looking at people and what their values are and different things like that. Ethical conduct is going to build trust within your business relationships. It's difficult when organizations has a reputation for acting unethically. And going back to Wells Fargo, their reputation has been tarnished, and they lost a lot of customers. And when people are looking at opening new accounts, they tend to remember this and think, this is not the type of business I want to be involved with. One thing you want to remember is ethical issues are not limited to for-profit organizations only. There are people that will start a nonprofit organization, and their goal is just to get as much money and power as they can, and so they do things that are illegal. They misconstruct what they're supposed to be doing, and they mislead the people. Another thing is ethical issues. People will have to choose the actions, and you evaluate them as right or wrong, or ethical or unethical. And when you're looking at ethical issues, it requires good personal values. Now, where do you get these personal values? Most of the time, they're going to be instilled in you as a child. Your parents are going to have said, you don't steal, you don't lie, you don't cheat. So you have a beginning of a knowledge. Now, you may not know how to apply that in a business environment, but you've got the knowledge of how how it should be back in the back. Now, when we're talking about an ethical issue, generally we're talking about a identifiable problem, situation, or an opportunity that's going to require you to choose from maybe just two or several actions that you are either going to evaluate as right or wrong, ethical or unethical, or other people are going to evaluate them. One of the first things is that you have to know that you can recognize an ethical issue. That's going to be the most important step in understanding business ethics. Ethical decision making is not always easy. Sometimes you will lose sleep over it. You will just agonize over having to make a decision that in your heart you know it's right, but it's not the most popular one within the organization. Organizations sometimes will reward overly aggressive objectives. Again, that's going back to Wells Fargo. They gave bonuses and people got to keep their job because their aggressive objective was to open up more accounts. Now, this is just a organizational slide that shows some of the misconducts that have been reported in the United States. 47% observed. I'm not going to read them all. You can look at those. But the most one is report observed misconduct. So here we got them observing, and then this amount reported. So that just gives you an idea that a lot of people know that there's misconduct going on, but they won't report it. All right, let's talk about, we're still talking about the role of ethics, but we're going to talk a couple of slides about bribes. Now, it's considered improper to give or accept bribes, and a bribe is a payment, a gift, or special favors that's intended, that the main purpose is to influence the decision outcome. There is an act, and it's the Foreign Corrupt Practice Act, and what that does is it imposes heavy penalties on U.S. corporations that either give or receive unethical bribes and different things like that. What it does, it doesn't want you to bribe foreign officials for be able to say, well, I need to dig here, and you bribe them for them to approve it. So it's it's really heavy penalties. It's also related to the culture in which the business operates. So, for instance, in the United States, it would be inappropriate for a business person to bring an elaborately wrapped gift to a prospective client on the first meeting. So, as a salesperson, if you were to go to the city council in Canton and you're wanting to get something zoned, and you brought a huge gift basket to the mayor, that is considered unethical. But in Japan, it's considered impolite not to bring a gift. So you need to, as if you're working in foreign countries, you need to know what their culture expects. Still talking about the role of ethics in business, the next part we're going to talk about is misuse of company time. And theft of time is common in the workplace. And you say, well, how can you steal time? Late arrivals. So you're supposed to be at work at 9 and you don't show up till 9:20. You have stolen 20 minutes from your company. Leaving early, you get off at 5 and you need to go to your child's ball game, so you leave at 4:30. You've just stole 30 minutes. Long lunch breaks, you get 30 minutes and you take an hour. You've stolen another one. Inappropriate sick days. Now, this is something that's kind of people want to go somewhere, and so what they do is they just call in sick. They're not sick, but they just want to go somewhere. That again is stealing from the company. Yes, you have sick days. What you might want to do is say, I want to take a mental health day or something like that. Excessive socializing, not doing your work, spending your time engaging with other people. Many companies will block websites from employee access. They block YouTube. They block TikTok. That's big in the news now. Is if you work at a government agency, you're not allowed to have TikTok on your business phone or your business computer. And just the misuse of company time cost billions of dollars annually to companies. We also have abusive and intimidating behavior, and what it results is bullying in the workplace. You have physical threats, you have false accusations, you have profanity, and you have insults. And I want to go back to profanity. One thing that I never allowed my students on campus was to use profanity in my classroom. Um, yes, I have had students say, well, I have the right for free speech. Yes, you do, but you never have the right to insult someone with your language. I don't care what you do on your own time and what kind of language you use, but when you are in a business environment and you're around other people, you need to clean up your language. People don't like that. And then it just talks about bullying can create a hostile environment. One other thing is that's big in today's culture is sexual harassment. And if you are a part of a sexual harassment or you see someone being sexually harassed, you have to know that this is against the law and it does have legal recourse. The next thing is the role of business in ethics. It misuses company resources, spending excessive time on personal emails. This is kind of going back to what I talked about, the stealing of time. What about your personal expenses on company reports? If you have an expense account, it is for business only and not for personal thing. Using a company copier or computer for personal use. This slide goes to talking about bribery, and bribery is very prevalent in the business environment. And this was just, if you want to do some research of that, a former Goldman Sachs banker, he was convicted of bribery, money laundering, and then, of course, violating the company's internal accounting controls. I'm not sure who it was, but you might want to do some research and find out who the banker was. Let's talk about the conflict of interest. And this exists when people have to choose whether to advance for their personal interest or of those or other people, including their family. And so you have to think about how your actions are going to affect everyone around you. And the last one's talking about insider trading or bribery, and that's basically buying or selling stocks by insiders who possess the material that is not gone public. One of the most famous one with the insider trading was Martha Stewart. So be a good thing to look up if you're interested in what exactly is insider trading. We want to look at is fairness and honesty. And this relates, again, back to the general values of the decision makers, the ones higher up. But as an employee and your company also, you have to look at these 5 areas. You've got to abide by the law. Your goal is to cause no harm through dishonesty. You have to use your company resources fairly and honestly. You have to use fair competitive practices, and then you have to give full disclosure of potential harm by a product. Now, within communications, and this is a tough one because if you watch any TV at all, you see ads and you know that they're misleading. But that is one of the goals in business, is that we are honest in our advertising. You have to be honest about your product and safety quality, and you have to follow those ethical labeling processes. Let's talk about business relationships. The relationship of you as a business person, you have to have, you have to be respectful toward customers, suppliers, or anybody in your workplace. You, as a manager, will and can influence your employees' actions. So you want to create the type of work environment that's going to help your organization to achieve their objectives. Plagiarism is another ethical issue. This is prevalent not only in the workplace, it's very prevalent in the academic world. When you have to make decisions about ethical issues, it can be difficult to recognize a specific ethical issue. As you mature, as you are in the business environment, you will begin to learn to see these. Um, the perceived importance of an issue will affect your choices, how you perceive it. If it's important to you, then you're going to have a better choice. If it's not, then you may just, you know, um, shrug it off. And then most in business environment receives no attention. This is just some questions that you need to look at when you're considering whether an action is ethical. You can ask yourself these questions. What are the legal ramifications? What is your company's code of ethics? Is this customary for your industry? Would your activity be accepted by coworkers? One thing that I'll never ever forget was when I was at another college, I had Monica Kaufman. That was her name at the time. Now I think she's being as known as by Monica Pearson. She was the um, news anchors for Channel 2 News. And she was talking to my students, and she said, when you're looking at an ethical decision, think about, would you want that decision on Channel 2 Action News at 6 or 11? And boy, that really made my students' ears pop up. Do you want your name plastered on the news? And then how does this activity fit within your role of your beliefs? Um, Improving your ethical behavior. There are three factors that influence business ethics: individual standards and values, and your influence of managers and coworkers. You will exert control through your authority, but you're going to do it more by example. Um, you're not going to be, you don't want to be one of those do as I say, not as I do. And then it's critical in gaining consistent compliance. And then the third one is you will have always, always, always the opportunity to engage in misconduct. How are you going to handle that? Most organizations do have a code of ethics, and what that does is it provides guidelines and your principles, again, to achieve the organizational objectives, but it does address what are the risks. And then if you are abiding by this, then a lot of companies will give enforcement through rewards, and punishment increases if um, if you break your code of conduct. Let's go to whistleblowing. Employees expose employers' wrongdoing to outsiders. That is most of the time what whistleblowing is. More companies are beginning to establish programs to encourage employees to report illegal or unethical practices internally. Instead of running to Channel 2 Action News, come to us. Give us the opportunity to correct the situation. And then Congress passed the Dodd-Frank Act, in which it established a whistleblower bounty program. This is about the Hyundai whistleblower, and if you decide to do Hyundai as your final research paper, then you might want to watch this video. Um, the current trend in business today is to move away from legally based ethical programs to cultural, or what they consider integrity-based programs that are going to make ethics a core organizational value. And good business ethics programs, they're going to help you develop higher levels of trust. They're going to help you avoid the damage to your company reputation or the product image. This slide just basically talks about some social responsibility requirement and how Starbucks went through these 4 stages to become what they consider socially responsible. Corporate citizenship. Now, that is you. And that goes into the extent to which businesses meet responsibilities placed on them by stakeholders. Again, remember, a stakeholder is anyone that has a stake in seeing that the company succeeds and that they're doing it legally. The commitment is going to be, the strategic force is going to be on fulfilling social responsibilities that are expected by either the organization stakeholders. And it could involve actions which the firm is going to incorporate citizenship philosophy by appropriate incentive. Now, when we are talking about corporate citizenship, we are talking about how corporations don't damage the environment, or they help out within their organization. I mean, within their city they're in, the county, the state, or different things like that. But basically, they are going to meet the legal, the ethical, the economic, and voluntary responsibility. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about corporate citizenship. Okay, insider corporate citizenship is when corporations, how they present themselves to the public. And this is one that happened, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, where Quaker Oats had Aunt Jemima products, and they wanted to adapt to the new culture, and so they rebranded themselves as Pearl Milling Company, and they say that makes it free of racist stereotypes of its predecessor. But this is not in your book. I'm going to throw this out to you. Do some research on this, and the lady that was branded as Aunt Jemima, her family was very, very upset over this because they said it took away from her legacy, and they did not feel like it was being racist. The next 2 slides are going to be for and against social responsibility, so you can read what they think, that if you're for social responsibility, some of the things that are necessary. And this slide is 5 things that people have said that they are against social responsibility. Some social responsibility issues that we're going to look at are relationships with the owners and stockholders, And stockholders are, again, if you have not had personal finance or microeconomics, these are people that own part of the company. It can be an organization or it can be an individual. So in order to do that, you've got to maintain proper accounting. You have to provide your investors with any information that's relevant, but you also are going to protect your owner rights and investments. As an employee, for social responsibility, you are going to provide your employees a safe workspace and pay them adequately. Um, it is always wise to keep your employees informed of what's happening within the company, as long as it is not detrimental to putting that information out there. You need to listen to any grievances and treat them fairly. And then, of course, legally, you have to provide equal opportunities. Let's talk about consumerism, and that includes the activities that independent individuals, groups, or organizations are going to undertake to protect their rights as consumers. And they can write letters to companies, you can have lobby government agencies, you can make public service announcements, and you can boycott irresponsible companies. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed into effect the Consumer Bill of Rights, and these are the right to safety, informed, to choose, and be heard. Now let's talk about sustainability. Sustainability is involving the assessment and improvement of business strategies, economic sectors, work pace, technology, and lifestyle styles, so that they are going to maintain the health of the natural environment. And so this is what is always referred to as going green. As you see in this figure 2.3, 85% of business leaders believe earning a profit is not the sole purpose of business companies anymore. That as an organization, they must positively affect society as well. And a number of studies that has been done has found a direct relationship between social responsibility and profitability, as well as a link that exists between your employee commitment and your customer loyalty. Um, Two major concerns of any organization trying to increase profits. So if you look at this, you will just kind of see that it's believed business must benefit all stakeholders. And remember, we learned in chapter 1 that a stakeholder is anybody that has a dog in the fight to see that this company succeeds. Um, we want to talk about pollution. You have water, toxic chemicals, raw sewage, air, land. I want to go back real quick to water. If there was a case, and it was Erin Brockovich, and she actually was not an activist, but she went to work for a company and found out they were polluting the water with chemicals, and then the chemicals were getting into the water supply for the town and causing tons of children and babies and some adults to come down with cancer. If you've never watched the Erin Brockovich story, I would suggest you do that. Then we go to alternative energy, and that's basically going with electric cars, because we're trying to reduce carbon emissions. Um, the only thing, and this is not in your book, and I'm just going to throw it out there to you, when you have if everybody goes to electric cars, it's going to cause the grid to come down. Not going to work. I don't care what anybody tells you, it is not going to work that everybody has electric cars. And this slide's just telling you about the Federal Trade Commission, and basically they are in existence to protect you as a consumer against unfair, deceptive, or fraudulent practices. Community relations. Businesses want to make your community a better place to live and work, and we do that through donations to charitable organizations. Your ball teams, if you are an athlete, you look around the football field, the baseball field, the basketball court, you will see all these people that have made donations to Reinhardt. That is, they're being community responsible. Greenwashing is a positive association with environmental issues, using green power when available, and then recycling. Very important that we recycle. I'm having a hard time with that right now because I was into recycling. We had our little recycle bin, and we in fact we recycled more than we put in the garbage. But then they took away our access, and they said we were going to have to pay every month more than we're paying for garbage pickup to recycle. I thought that was not a wise decision, so I don't recycle now. We're still looking at nature of social responsibility. And although a lot of you would argue that unemployment is an economic issue, it also has some ethical and social implications. Organizations may inadvertently contribute to an unemployment. Deploying automation solutions and artificial intelligence may result in needing fewer employees to accomplish certain tasks. So that would lead to laying off employees, and so that would be a way of social responsibility, is they're not reducing unemployment. Now, this slide is interesting because it's talking about the surge in shoplifting. And some retailers have actually closed stores where losses are too large, especially in California. This has happened because they get in they get in groups and go into the big box stores, and then they just steal everything they can. Because one thing is that California passed a law that it had to be over maybe $1,000 before they would even do it. I think it was even more than that, that they would do anything about it. So here's a critical thinking question. Ethical egoism. What do you think that is? Why do you think shoplifting is on the rise? And how does shoplifting negatively affect a retailer's stakeholders? Now, again, remember, stakeholder is anybody that has anything to do with making sure that this business succeeds. So, how does shoplifting negatively affect a stakeholder? If they close their doors, then people can't get to them to buy their product.